But John, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you, Dave, my friend. How are you?
Good. And so you're the director of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, official title is President CEO. Been on the job now for 6 years, working on 7, and I love the job, love the community. You know, I've had a background in retail and a background in media with the radio station and sales, and it was kind of a natural fit. About 6 years ago, this opened up, and I said, "Oh, I think I want to try that for a while." So,
now you're inaugurating a new part of the show. Normally we end the show at this point, but what we decided to do is we go into areas like Myrtle Point and Portland and Salem and wherever else we go, is to find out what's going on in the community at large. It could be school board, city council, Boys and Girls Club, roads, streets, Chamber of Commerce, whatever's going on. And we just want to talk about that community. So John, you're the first one.
Well, thank you for that opportunity. You know, that's kind of an ironic thing that Ontario gets to be the first one, because the city slogan is Ontario where Oregon begins.
Okay.
Because you've come across on the Oregon Trail, you leave Idaho, and you get into Ontario. And so we're pretty proud of that. We like being way over here in Eastern Oregon. I like to tell people, you know, we're 2 hours from everywhere, because you can actually go to Boise in an hour, get on a flight, and hit the beach in an hour too. So with a time change, it is possible. So we have a lot of fun. Ontario is, as you've noticed as you came back to town, is a growing community. We've the east side of town, which is right on the riverside, we've built a Walmart about, I guess, 11, 12, 13 years ago.
It's been a while.
And it's now a super Walmart, and you see some new construction across the street from that. There's a Big 5 sporting goods going in. It's an actual strip mall that's coming in there, and they've got a couple different stores and some vacancy. Actually, it's a group out of Bend that is doing that, and you see that, and then you come down a little further, and there's some more dirt being turned, and there's a retail Sherman-Williams store coming in. So we're coming out of the recession here pretty strong with some growth. The exciting news is, in the last few years, we finally passed a school bond, and we're getting a new middle school built right on the same property as the existing middle school. In between, the students this year are having a little bit of challenges getting around and everything, but it'll be well worth it. And then up at the high school, they're getting a new science wing. And at our college, which is Treasure Valley Community College, is just a gem of the community. It brought many of us here to go to school from throughout Oregon. And
I noticed they're expanding that. They've got a sign program here. They're putting a new entrance sign.
They've put new entrance signs in. They've actually done a capital campaign, and they're almost complete for a new science building that is going to help them. If you went to school there, they used the same science building that they did in 1969 when they built the thing. I mean, it's way outdated and overcrowded, so they're going to build a new science building on campus, and the campus is just growing all the time. In fact, next week we have a ribbon cutting up at their new arena barn that they did, and they've gone with the solar energy and all that. They really helped with the new readiness center that came to town. Thanks to the state of Oregon for moving from the old facility, which we call an armory, to the new readiness center that has a solar program that the students can learn about that through the college. There's a viticulture program at the college. It's just it's amazing for this size of community to have that sort of facility. Sort of like Four Rivers Culture Center, we have this beautiful convention center here that we're trying to utilize more.
The Four Rivers Cultural Center, which is just right behind us.
Right behind us. We're on 4th Avenue here with Veterans Advocates, and it's on 5th Avenue right behind us. So it's a growing community.
So are we noticing Ontario and other communities, but let's talk about Ontario. We're noticing more retail activity, more building activity. Are we starting to come out of the recession?
I would believe so. I mean, Ontario is very unique, as is many cities in Oregon, where our income or our revenue is such driven on agriculture. I mean, right as you leave town, you see that it's a lot of fields, a lot of onions come out of Ontario, go out around the onion capital of the world. I know everybody says Walla Walla because of the name, but the Spanish sweets that they grow here, they get shipped all over. Our big employer, Heinz, which for
Still
us,
the biggest employer?
we call it Ore-Ida, but it's actually H.J. Heinz now. You know, they're running 365, a lot of shifts. They do shut down for a little bit in the summer, but when you have an agriculture-based community, and that's the commodity that you have, and people, unfortunately, you know, you look at what's happening down in Texas with the drought and stuff. Yeah. Well, we're growing some of the same crops, so that's helping out here. And most of the growers get it here that, you know, if they grow the crops here, they spend the money locally. So we're so driven by that economic driver that other changes don't happen as fast or as slow. So yes, it does seem that finally we are getting some retail growth, and housing is still an issue here. Land use, as you mentioned when you were talking to Ron and Charlene, we're right on the border.
Right.
It's the minimum wage in Oregon is higher than it is in Idaho. You can obviously get land and build houses for less money in Idaho than you can in Oregon, and so that's kind of a challenge that we keep working for. I'm blessed. The chamber board that I work for highly lets me promote the whole region, and so if it's good over there, and there's some retail going across the river too, so I'm excited about that.
Now, the sales tax issue has always been a draw to Ontario because people from Idaho can come over here and pay no sales tax.
That's right. So if you're sitting in Boise right now watching this, you can save yourself 5% real quick. Just, it's not even an hour over here, and we have some big stores that would love to help you out with that.
Cars, big ticket items.
Yeah, well, you can do that. Well, you still got to pay the tax on the car when you get back. So,
okay.
But it's always been kind of an issue, and the border towns across the way have tried to compete, and they've gone to their state legislation and tried to get an exemption and things. But it's we're not unique to that. I mean, you got Portland, you got the towns in Southern Oregon that deal with the same things. So it is an advantage. On the downside of that, there is income tax at the end of the year, and so it's a give and take. But it's what we do when we live in Oregon.
Now, people across other parts of the state of Oregon, as they think of Ontario, one of the things that first comes to mind is it's where Oregon's biggest prison is, Snake River Corrections Institution. So, when people talk about Ontario, Oregon, what do you want them to picture? What's the vision you have?
Community. I mean, we're a small community of 10,000 people. But we take in all the neighboring communities, so we bump our population up to 40,000 people real quick. And I always tell major retailers when I'm trying to do economic development and get them to move here, obviously we wouldn't have a super Walmart unless we could draw a circle of 100,000 people, and that goes back to that sales tax and people from the Boise area coming over here. But I want people to understand that Ontario is a town of community, a town where the citizens still care. You go downtown, we have potted plants, we're dressing up town. We're blessed that we have the employment of the prison. They've been in business now out there 20 years. They just had their
20 years?
They just had their 20th anniversary last week.
I'm feeling old. I
Yes.
was here when they first put that in.
I remember the fights when they were trying to, the citizens, yes, no, and all that. But it's been a great partnership.
Yeah.
They've fortunately brought a lot of people in from around the state and other states for employment, and
family wage employment.
Family wage employment, and so it's a good partnership. But yeah, I want people to understand that in Ontario it is community. There's still a lot of groups, such as Veterans Advocate of Ore. I get the pleasure of sitting on many boards, and
you're on that board, aren't you?
I am on that board,
okay.
And I don't go to a lot of their meetings, but yes, I'm on that board.
Okay.
And we just care over here still. We still get it that it's if it's good for our community, then it's good for the state. And when we say community, we truly do mean our neighboring towns in Malheur County and in Payette County and Washington County, Idaho.
What are the challenges for Ontario?
The sales tax, the land use, trying to recruit businesses in. Corporate tax is kind of always an issue when you're this close to a border and you're trying to recruit a major employer. It's always a little bit tough when they can look at tax base to that.
Kind of the corporate tax structure.
Yeah, corporate tax structure.
Land use restrictions.
Yeah, for development. We've done some really neat things just recently. They got a Connect Oregon grant, and our runway got extended
at the airport.
So they can bring in corporate jets and do some things. They're doing some jet parking out there. I was out there last night, and it's really those type of projects kind of will, in the long run, with the infrastructure and everything that's coming, will change the dynamics of Ontario. So some of the challenges that we currently have or have had are kind of taking care of themselves and going away. Currently, we have a great city leadership. I mean, our city is they're proactive on most issues and are willing to listen to the businesses. And my fights with City Council and City Hall are down to a minimum compared to what they were. We will be tearing up some roads. There's some major construction. There's going to be some major construction that is needed, and it's needed for growth. I mean, that's growing pains, and hopefully it'll go, out in front of the Walmart area where the new stars are coming. You got to have additional lighting and lanes and things like that. So, one of our biggest challenges is getting people to understand that Ontario is a community that just cares, but not only about Ontario. I think a lot of people from when I go to Bend or Astoria, everything, and kind of the same thing. Well, you guys have a prison. We're our own little world. Well, we're not an isolated world over here. Even though we're the only big city in the state of Oregon on a different time zone, we definitely understand that what happens in the Willamette Valley and what happens in Salem is directly going to affect us. So part of the challenge is getting the people who live here to also understand that we're not on an island, and we need to get involved in Salem at the capital level and let people know what's going on.
From a cultural standpoint, Ontario is very tied to the Boise community, if you're not aware of that. That's always been a bit of a challenge for Ontario to feel included in the state, hasn't it?
It's a big challenge. When you get all your local news, when you turn on the morning TV, all your news stations, unless you live in Ontario and are on Cable One, you can only catch Boise news. I got to tell you, they're doing a lot better job, and groups from over here are doing a lot better job of feeding the Boise area our local news. And so we're getting a little bit more local.
What about state of Oregon news? Are you guys getting enough Oregon state news over here, like Salem, etc.?
If you look for it, you can find it, and that's what I'm encouraging people to do. There's many. I mean, you got to do it through the web. I mean, the Oregonian doesn't come over here anymore. You have to look at it on the website.
Oh, really? Okay.
There is one Portland news channel. It's our channel 18. It's their channel 8 over there. And
it's
with
KGW,
the KGW. I think that's what I was going to say, but I didn't want to do the wrong one just in case.
Oh, okay. I think it's KGW.
And we can watch that, and they do a pretty good job of covering the political part down in Salem. But for the most part, I mean, if you are interested, and I hope you are, you need to just go on the website and look at the different ones that cover it. There's a great website called Oregon Watchdog, and it highlights every paper. And I mean, I get an email from that every day, and I go through it. And then part of my job that I love is if it affects a certain group or a certain business or a certain industry, then I make sure that they are aware of those issues that are coming. And that website does a wonderful job also of covering if it's something was in our local paper, the Argus Observer, they will run that story, whether it be a weed issue or a water issue. Because believe it or not, Eastern Oregon water is still king. And when we have great water years, we have great years, and we have bad water years, we have
It's very agriculture dependent.
Very agriculture.
And we do want to put a plug in for the Argus Observer. Larry Meyer of the Argus was here this morning and covering the fact that we're in town, and I believe it was also at a concert last night. So we want to put a plug for the Argus Observer, which is the newspaper in Ontario, Oregon. If there's a legislator or a state official, but let's talk about legislative issues. If somebody from the state legislature is watching today, what are the issues that Ontario, Oregon is really impacted by? And if you could say, folks in Salem, we need some issues in these areas.
Well, we have a really good state representative in Representative Cliff Benson. We have a great senator in Senator Ted Ferrioli, and we tell them to please tell their colleagues in Salem that water issues mean a lot over here. Taxing issues mean a lot over here. Poverty level issues, because we are a poor county, that anything they can do to provide jobs throughout rural Oregon is very important. We have while they're in session, our chamber hosts a legislative hotline, and
they're still doing that.
Still doing that.
Friday mornings at 7. Still?
Friday mornings at 7:00,
okay.
Which I got to tell you is 6 in Salem. So the fact that they come to that meeting and bring guests is just hugely impressive. That and we get to talk. A lot of it centers around education.
Mm-hmm. What did they talk about this morning? Were you there?
We didn't have it this morning.
Okay.
So, but a lot of issues about water, a lot of issues about taxing. over here, important things that level and the federal level is the cattle industry, desert. We just, you name it, it seems like we get involved in it. And one of the things about living in a rural community, whether it be here or Pendleton or anywhere in Eastern Oregon, is you wear a lot of hats, and you go from meeting to meeting and push the issues that we do have. But we're very lucky. But I guess to answer your question directly, if it has to do with water, fight for it.
Okay.
Don't let that water go.
Southeast Oregon, Malheur County, very agricultural dependent, row crops, a lot of potatoes, a lot of onions.
A lot of cattle.
And dairy isn't a real big industry here, is it?
Not here.
Okay.
And that has a lot to do with another issue that affects the farmers and the industry, and that's, environmental issues. Again, Idaho is a little looser on that than Oregon is.
Yes,
Okay, they're a lot looser on that than Oregon is. And so you will see just across the river, and as you go on the other side of Boise, you'll see the bigger dairies. And so it's not, there are dairies here, and some family-owned dairies here that do fairly well, but it's not as big as what it used to be. So, and sheep aren't as big here as what they used to be.
Economic development. We've kind of touched on some of the areas that Ontario could use some help in, and that would be land use planning. Oregon's land use planning law is very restrictive, especially as you compare it to the state of Idaho.
Correct.
So you guys need some help there. And what would you like to see the state do as far as land use planning? Create some exemptions, maybe, possibly border communities, allow a little more local control in the decision?
A lot more local control in the decisions, especially for the communities that sit on borders that are needing to compete for economic development, and economic development obviously means jobs. We need to have the ability for our counties and our cities to do within their planning thing, within the urban growth and within all these hoops that they have to jump through to make it, to have more control of saying, yes, we have this great city and there's this huge parcel of land that sits in the middle that's still being farmed, and we can't count that in our inventory of land use because of the fact that it's rated agricultural. They need to loosen up just enough to say, okay, well, someday we can switch that to commercial. Local control on land use within, a radius of the city or within different pockets of the county. Ontario, Nissa, and Vail, all three have had opportunity for growth that we've had to miss out on because of the land use issues and trying to get the land ready ahead of time for these businesses. A lot of businesses, when they want to move and do their thing, they don't want to go 6-8 months down the road to do it.
And businesses don't want to wait that long.
Yeah, a prime example, and that wasn't the whole story, but a part of the story is a great business that you guys just got over in Bend area and actually in Prineville would be Facebook. And people of Ontario don't know that we were number 2 on that list. And
you were number 2
there was a tough group. Look at Councilman Verini smile at me over there. There was a tough group that swayed them to go to Prineville, and the good news is they stayed in Oregon. That's the good news. Obviously, and they've already are working on their expansion in Prineville, which we kind of knew if we could do this, that would happen, and that. So we try to remind the citizens and the state, if we could have controlled a few more issues on the land use of where they were looking at that parcel of land and things, we probably would have came in number 1. But at least they're in Oregon. At least this job's in Oregon.
Do you think that the land use planning and the need for more local control is probably the biggest economic development challenge you have? Or probably
if it's not number 1, it's number 2. I mean, it's just, and the recruitment of the businesses to the area. A challenge, of course, is just geographically, now that we're expanding the airport, we've got Interstate 84 running right through the heart of town.
Right.
We have, Highway 20, Highway 26, Highway 201. I mean, we sit, if you were a distribution company and you weren't looking at Ontario and you wanted to serve the West Coast and you're from the East Coast, you really should be looking at Ontario, because we sit in a great location for that.
You have connections to major arterials, like you said, and you have land to grow.
Sure. And, we have... like I said when we started this, we're 2 hours from everywhere. We're only an hour from Boise. So as far as relocating and losing any kind of quality of life, Boise, Idaho has a major football team. They don't have any pro sports, but they have just about any concert that plays Seattle, Salt Lake, we'll go to Boise. We're halfway between Seattle and Salt Lake. Our hotels here do phenomenal because of the overnights of people traveling. You'll go out to the hotel in the wintertime and you'll see people from Seattle who are going to Sun Valley, and this is as far as they felt like driving in that one day. Our challenge at the Chamber and the visitors and convention side of the Chamber that we run is getting those people that once they're off that freeway to come on into town and see the quaintness of Ontario and get to know it. Relocation is huge, and then the land use also goes not only for the commercial but just for the residential. I mean, people want a house and then they want to have a couple acres with it, a small farm or whatever, and that's much easier to do in Idaho than it is in Oregon. But like I said, if they're living over there, we're not getting the tax base, but they are shopping over here, and they do become part of our communities, and our kids play sports together and everything. And so it's still a good situation.
What about? We'll touch briefly on this. I know a lot of the growth here in Ontario. Have you got a few more minutes?
Yep.
Okay. A lot of the growth in Ontario is happening over by Walmart on the east side of the city. But like the downtown cores and some of the areas like on the west side of town. Areas that don't have, for example, an anchor store like a Walmart. What can be done in those parts of the town to encourage growth?
Write me a check and build an anchor store.
Okay.
That.
Send it to John Breidenbach.
Yeah, Ontario Chamber of Commerce. Obviously, I mean, when I travel over and I go to Salem and I fly into Portland and I'm driving down, and over in Boise too, if you came in that way, you'll see the trend in shopping is the get off the freeway real quick, get back on the freeway real quick. Going into the heart of towns doesn't seem to be as much of a trend. We do have some prime land that's down by where you and I used to work at KSRV.
Yeah,
and it's right
there's
there.
There's been some development down there.
Freeway frontage that could turn into that. Up on this end of town, the west end of town, where the Beltline is, and that area, that's exactly where we're at. We're one away from, if somebody builds in something new, then their neighbors are going to want to build, because eventually, and we are running out of land on the east side rather rapidly now of the new strip mall and everything. The challenge, and we do have a group looking very seriously on a piece of ground that's just off of the Beltline, and it's a business that will bring in jobs. And so when the jobs come, then people will drive by there, and then the businesses will want to sprout up and be where they can serve the business. As you saw down in that area, we have a big Love's truck stop, and there's some prime real estate land down there, and that's just, I believe that's just going to take time as we're coming out of the recession as a nation. That then things will start moving and building again. And they're going to do some restructuring. Some of the roads down there are going to get straightened out and everything.
Okay.
So.
John is the CEO and president of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. Keep wanting to call him executive director for some reason.
Because I was for many years. We did a model change. We did a business model change at the Chamber.
People want to contact you. How do they do that?
OntarioChamber.com, info at Ontario Chamber, 541-889-8012 is our phone number. We're pretty easy to find. We're on the web.
There you go. And on the map. And on the map. Southeast Oregon, right on the border of Idaho and Oregon. Ontario, Oregon.
If I could just have 30 more seconds.
Go right ahead.
One of the things that we do have here that we can offer to people looking to relocate and everything is good to great health care. Holy Rosary Medical Center, which was owned by CHI for many years, has been bought out and is now part of the St. Alphonsus Medical Group. And so they are tied in directly with the big hospitals over in Boise, and I mean, we're sharing doctors, and as you can see, they're growing a clinic across the river and doing a lot of things. And so healthcare here is a big thing. And groups like the Veterans Advocates of Ore-Ida and many of the other groups that we deal with, we're making sure, we're trying to bring Boise closer to us and us closer to Boise. It's always kind of been here, the fact that, if you live in Ontario, Boise's just not very far. If you live in Boise, it's like Ontario's way over there. We're trying to bridge that over. It was kind of nice back in '08 when Boise became Meridian, and Meridian became Nampa and Caldwell, and they just all were growing, and it was getting so close to here. And then unfortunately we had this recession, and it kind of slowed back down. But it's a very much still a proactive and a growing community, and if you've never been to Ontario, you need to come to Ontario so we can say hi to you and you can find out how great of a lifestyle we have over here.
Okay, John, thank you for being the first expanded part where we take a look at community interest here on EVM Media, TJN, the Jesus Network, and Operation Eagle's Wings, honoring all who serve and leaving no one behind. You can catch this webcast on our websites. Again, those are www.tjn.tv and www.eagle1.tv. And then the third one is www.evmmedia.tv. So, thanks for being the first, our guinea pig, so to speak.
Thank you.
And that does it for today's broadcast. We will be on the road, and we're going to be back in Bend. And coming up this Monday at 7 a.m. Pacific time, the TJN guest will be a gentleman who was a Christian in Russia, and shares his experiences about what life was like in Russia and here in the United States in Bend, Oregon. That and much more coming up on Monday. Check our website for more information. We do want to thank our partners who are helping us out: State Farm Insurance, Jess Messner, our agent, Webformex, very instrumental in allowing us to go on location in Central Oregon and provide a streaming broadcast, and Bentel. Our network, to a great extent, is powered by Bentel in Bend, Oregon. So many thanks to those folks and the other partners, and we're looking for communities to go into. So if you want us to come visit your town and tell your story, we'd like to know that as well. Just send me an email at dave@evmmedia.info. dave@evmmedia.info. There's a contact link on our website, and we'll catch you later. Looking forward to it. You have a great day.